Alright guys, my name is Goblin, and today I'm presenting to you my detailed and concise Hunter 60 to 70 leveling guide for Classic or Legacy TBC. This video will cover a number of important topics: unique tips and tricks, optimal leveling build, what is the best pet and how to spend training points, optimal playstyle for the fastest kill speed and mana efficiency, stat priority, useful classic wild trinkets and gear to keep, and lastly we'll talk a little bit about the reputation priority. First things first guys, mount speed. You can very easily increase your mount speed from the typical 100% that a mount gives you to a total of 114% mount speed with a combination of 3 very simple items which will speed you up considerably in the open world, particularly for when you get that 60% flying mount. The 3 items are firstly the carrot on a stick obtained from the quest Garzilla, which is from Zul'Farrak, the mithril spurs, which you can very easily buy on the auction house, and the riding skill glove enchant. I'd also recommend stacking up a few swiftness potions to get out of interior locations a little faster, like caves and stuff like that. And to make the equipping process much simpler, you can get the add-on called Auto Carrot, which automatically equips everything whenever you mount up and automatically equips your previous gear when you demount. Secondly, let's talk about pet dummying. It's a trick that I use to skip mobs whenever I'm running to a certain location. What you can very easily do is command your pet to attack mobs and then immediately put the pet on passive, and what happens is the mob is basically aggroed, but then you can just keep running through all of the mobs and letting your pet take up all the aggro. Obviously your pet will get dazed rather than you getting dazed, so you can just carry on. You can also use this trick to pick up quest items quickly or complete quest objectives without pulling aggro and without being interrupted. Secondly, we have the Bob's Your Uncle 1-button pet maintenance macro. So what it does, if you press it without a pet, it summons your pet. If you press it when you do have a pet, it will dismiss your pet. If you press it while you're moving, it will feed your pet. You will actually, where you can see /cast nocombat pet 0-1, that is bag slots, but what you want to do is replace the 0 and 1 with the item that you want the pet to eat. And lastly, if you press the shift key, it will revive your pet. Thirdly, you can make pet taming a much easier process with, first of all, by using freezing trap. Put the mob into a freezing trap and then tame it. You can get a mage to polymorph it, or what you can do is a last second abandon if you want to get rid of the pet. Command your pet to attack the pet that you want to tame, just let him tank and take over the aggro. Start the tame, and then just before the tame is complete, totally abandon your current pet, and then Bob's Your Uncle, you've got your new pet. Fourthly, I'd recommend getting an auto shot timer add-on. The best one I'd recommend is weapon swing timer. Make sure you set it up so it's very clear for you to see when you can obviously strafe between all of your auto shots, because that can be very useful at optimizing your DPS. My last tip is you may as well command your pet to attack while you're drinking. There's no need to just sit there drinking while your pet isn't attacking, so that will increase your efficiency just a little bit. But anyway, let's move on to talents. So the big question that everyone's probably wondering by now is, what spec should I respec into at level 60 to get ready for Outland? So you can totally forget about the marksman tree for about 2 years, because it is totally suboptimal to the other specs available in TBC. We're going to be looking at an advanced beast mastery build that is, changed here and there to optimize leveling efficiency. So first of all, we're just going to max out endurance training. The reason why we don't go for improved aspect of a hawk is because we're going to have access to aspect of the viper, which we're going to be using most of the time because it's great for mana efficiency. Then we're going to go into focused fire. This really becomes into use at level 66 when you actually do get kill command, but it is very, very useful because it increases the crit chance of kill command by 20%. So that's really nice, because especially as that generates more focus with the go for the throat talent. We'll talk about that later though. And then you just want to get improved revive pet because, it's just useful, really. Saves a little bit of mana, reduces the cast time, can be useful in PvP too. Now we want to move on to bestial swiftness. Very, very straightforward. It's going to get the pet to the target faster. You really cannot complain. Then you're going to get max out Unleashed Fury. You're going to max out Ferocity. May as well get a point in Intimidation because the stun is useful. and you also want to max out Bestial Discipline, and then you want to get 1 point in Improved Mend Pet. Well, we may as well get 2, but what we're going to do is get 4 points in Frenzy. You'll need 4 points to keep this buff maintained 100% of the time. Then from here you want to finish off Improved Mend Pet, then Bestial Wrath, and then from here you've got basically options. My personal preference is to go for Spirit Bond, and then go for 2 points in cat-like reflexes. Some people like to go for Anima Handler for increased mount speed, but personally I'm going to take advantage of, you know, Carrot on a Stick, Mithril Spurs and other things like that to get my mount speed, so I'm not really that worried about that. And you've also got this little buff that only increases your damage by 3% when you max it out, but it's also for other party members, so if you're doing dungeon groups, maybe more useful. But my preference is to max out Spirit Bomb, because the healing you get, it's not that great, but you do bear in mind that you're healing your pet and yourself for 2% every 10 seconds, and then in the long run it is actually fairly decent. Then we have Cat-Rat Reflexes, basically just going to reduce the damage that your pet takes because it increases its avoidance by 6%, really can't complain at that. Then you're going to max out Serpent Swiftness and then get 1 point into the Beast Within, which is a slight buff to Bestial Wrath because it also affects you as well, so very decent DPS boost. Then we're going to move over to the Marksman tree, get Lethal Shot maxed out for the extra 5% crit on range attacks, really cannot complain at that, it is the best one in that tier. Then you have Efficiency, slightly better mana efficiency, cannot complain at that, and then now you are officially level 60, pretty sure anyway, let's have a look, yeah, level 60. So now the 2 talents you want to get straight away is Go for the Throats. What this does is every time you crit, which is going to be a lot, bearing in mind because you're probably going to have a lot of raid gear with a lot of crit on it, your pet will generate 50 focus. So it gains half its focus bar in 1 crit. And you're going to be critting like what? Near enough every other hit pretty much, because your crit's going to be so high. What this means is that it's pretty much impossible for your pet to efficiently focus dump his abilities, because he's going to be generating so much focus and it just massively buffs his DPS. Then we're going to want to get Rapid Killing. The main reason why we get this obviously is because of that 20% additional damage on auto shot every time you kill a target, so when you're chain killing targets you're going to get a slight DPS boost. Then you can go onto Aim Shot, and you can consume the Rapid Killing buff with Aim Shot to open combat if you want to do that, but the rotation is going to be slightly different because you are mainly going to be using Steady Shot when it becomes available at 62, so you're probably not going to be using it that much. It is more of a PvP talent, to be honest, because you can make some use out of it in PvP because of that healing reduction. But anyway, then the main reason why we're going to get Aim Shot is honestly just for Mortal Shots, because you just want to finish off Immortal Shots as you get to level 70, because it's a very decent DPS boost to all of your critical strikes. And there you go, Bob's your uncle, you are level 17, you can respec into your optimal raiding spec, which in all honesty isn't that much different from this spec, but anyway, that's for a future video. So next question is all about pets, because that's like the second biggest question that people ask. What pet should I tame? And the very simple answer is you should get a Ravager. So there are 3 very important things when it comes to pet leveling, you know, when it comes to efficiency and all of that. First of all, the engage speed. How fast does the pet get to the target in the first place? Because if it's like a slow bear, then it's going to be pretty useless because you're wasting time actually getting to your target in the first place. Secondly, is it good at focus dumping? There are some high DPS pets out there, but they just don't really dump their focus enough, so they actually drop DPS compared to others. Then thirdly, obviously, is the actual overall DPS. So the Ravager gets into combat very quickly with a dash ability that increases its movement speed by 80% for 15 seconds, which stacks to 110% movement speed increase with the Bestial Swiftness talent. So it gets into combat very fast, so that is that checkbox ticked. The Ravager also has 2 DPS abilities, Gore and Bite, that are good at focus dumping. Gore rank 8 deals 30 to 48 damage and has a 50% chance to inflict double damage, okay, which is even more powerful as a crit, since crit damage is 150% of normal damage. In fact, the only reason why a Ravager is slightly better than Raptors and Cats is because of this ability. Due to the Go for the Throat talent that causes your ranged crits to generate 50 pet focus, it will be difficult to fully dump your pet's focus, which is why some people argue for the Wind Serpent as a good choice also, because of Lightning Breath, as it is really good for dumping focus. However, from my personal experience and from my personal tests, the Ravager just simply does a little bit more DPS. Although, if you are struggling to get a Ravager due to competition, because there's only a few of them in, obviously, Outland, Hellfire Peninsula and Blade Edge Mountains, then fair enough, bring a Wind Serpent with you instead, because they are a decent option. So personally, my game plan would be to bring a cat or a raptor that I do not care about abandoning all the way to Outland when the Dark Portal opens, and I'm going to keep that pet until level 63. Now you're probably thinking that it's a good idea to get a Ravager as soon as possible from Hellfire Peninsula, but it's not, in my opinion. Firstly, it's going to be difficult to get a mob in the first place if you're playing on launch. It's going to take too long to get that pet to max loyalty rating for all the training points to spend on his abilities, particularly as you're going to replace it at level 63 anyway. So my recommended path would be to firstly, like I said, bring a cat or a raptor that you don't care about abandoning. Go to Taroka Forest level 63 and stable your cat or your raptor at either Stonebreaker Hold or Illyrian Stronghold. Go and tame a Dreadfang Lurker or a Dreadfang Widow to get rank 9 Bite, and then just simply get rid of the pet. Pick up your cat or raptor and continue as usual, and then later when you get to Blade Edge Mountains, tame a Ripblade Ravager, as you can see it is here on the map. This Ravager will have an upgraded rank 9 Go and rank 3 Dash, and then just keep that pet until level 70. And then obviously first of all give it rank, max rank Bite, then Stamina, and then finish your points off in Pet Armor, and then if you have any left over that, then I would recommend Shadow Resistance over all of the other resistances. Now let's talk about playstyle, how to kill mobs fast, and how to maximize your mana efficiency. So first important thing when it comes to playstyle is aspect swapping. Most of the time you're going to be sitting in aspect of the Viper since it's so incredibly mana efficient, and it allows you to push loads and loads of DPS because you can simply use more of your abilities. But if you are actually in fact capping on your mana, then switch to aspect of a Hawk. But really you shouldn't be capping on your mana. If you're capping on your mana, you want to start thinking about taking on more than one mob at once. We'll talk about that later. Irritation will be pretty simple, but it will change at level 62 and 66. Well, technically it will only change at level 62. So, first rotation in phase 1. Rotation is Hunter's Mark and Pet Engage macro, which I will feature on the screen here and in the description of this video. What it essentially does is it applies Hunter's Mark, and then obviously uses Pet Attack as well, all in the same macro. Would not recommend using it in a PvE dungeon or raiding environment or anything like that. It is specifically for solo leveling. Then what you want to do is get an auto shot off before you use any kind of ability, because you do not want to clip an auto shot. When you engage combat for the first time and you're in range, you will automatically instantly auto shot, but if you use an ability before you do that, you will clip it and waste a little bit of DPS. So auto shot straight into a multi shot, then let an auto shot go off again, because it's probably round about time out of the global cooldown for that to happen, and then go into Serpent Sting and then go into an auto shot, and then you just pretty much rinse and repeat that process. The mob will probably die before, well, you'll probably be able to fit in one more multi shot, but I recommend not doing so for mana efficiency. I would just recommend letting your auto shots slowly get the target down. And then you have the phase 2 rotation, which makes the rotation much simpler, because you will have access to the infamous one button macro once you unlock Steady Shot at level 62, which I definitely recommend going back to a capital city to train. This macro basically just spams Steady Shot with an inbuilt cooldown to ensure that you do not clip your auto shot. Make sure to adjust for a reset speed on the actual macro to your actual range attack speed, because it might be different depending on what weapon you are using. And then it will also cast Kill Command whenever it is available, which will be unlocked at level 66. And that's it, you just spam that macro and you're doing optimal DPS. You may also want to do a Serpent Sting if you want, but really, I would just spam this macro. Some people also like to put pet attack and pet abilities within this macro, but it's my preference to have better control over when my pet attacks and have it in with a Hunter's Mark macro instead for a little bit more efficiency. And plus, for personal experience, spamming pet abilities in a macro kind of bugs out the pet a little bit and resets its attack. Just issues that I've encountered on private servers. It may not be on retail, but it's just what I've discovered. Yeah, so I just think it's simpler to keep it on the auto cast. What all you have to do is simply spam that ability and your damage will be quite literally insane, particularly if you're standing in classic raid gear. You will be killing mobs before they can even get into melee range to you, so pulling aggro is honestly barely really an issue. My recommendation, if you want to get even more efficiency out of your leveling experience, and you're capping on mana and you feel like you can just push your combat efficiency even more, what I'd recommend to do is apply a double target rotation, or playstyle, whatever you want to call it. So first of all, I'd recommend commanding your pet to attack a first target, and then applying Serpent Sting onto the first target too, and then leave the pet to attack the first target. Then, you have a little bit of a look about for your second target. Then you use your one button macro on the second target with a concussion shot thrown in, so he doesn't, to slow him down so he doesn't get into melee range as fast. The mob will probably die if you spam that macro before he gets into melee range, but you can finish it off with this melee attack macro, which will just have Mongoose Bite and everything like that, that you can just spam and it's Bob's your uncle. And then what you want to do is switch to the first mob to finish it off if it hasn't already died, and then rinse and repeat that process. What you can also do is put a third mob into an immolation trap and then just body tank it and then continue that typical rotation that I just gave you before, but that's obviously even more advanced. So section 5, stat priority. So when it comes to choosing gear pieces in the Burning Crusade, you probably won't replace much of your raid gear, to be honest, but here is the stat priority if you get pieces that are better than your raid gear. First of all, you want the hit cap. I'd recommend just keeping the hit cap when you're going into Outland, because you may be dealing with mobs 1 or 2 levels higher than you, so you do just want to maintain that hit cap, because it will just smooth out your damage throughout the entire experience. Then crit chance, because you just want to keep your crit chance high. It's great for damage. And then you've also got intellect and MP5, which is a little cheeky stat to have as well. And then really it's honestly just whatever you can find. It's a bit meh. And remember to keep all of your hit chance gear pieces, because you will need them for raiding. Next, let's talk about classic WoW trinkets and gear pieces I recommend keeping. First of all, Devil Source Tooth. I think this is going to be very useful to keep around, because it increases you get guaranteed crit on your pet attack, and as we talked about earlier on, that will have synergy with the new TBC talent, Go for the Throat, so obviously that's going to be very, very useful. You've also got Earth Strike trinket, which is pretty good to keep around, and then you've also got Jom Gabar, which is another useful trinket to keep around. When it comes to set pieces, from what I can see, set bonuses for the 6 piece on tier 3 that grants 50 mana whenever you crit is going to be very useful while leveling for mana efficiency, because you will be critting quite a lot. And then both the set 3 and 5 bonuses for tier 1 and tier 2 are quite interesting. You may want to keep them if you've got that gear. The buff to Mend Pet will be very good, especially as it will stack with the talent for a total of 50% mana reduction on your Mend Pet. That's pretty good. The buff to Aspect of a Hawk could be good on the tier 2 piece, although you probably will be using Aspect of a Viper most of the time. And the tier 5 set bonuses for both of these sets, obviously one of them is a little bit better, will increase your pet stamina by 40, which is basically as good as the actual buff you get from pet training, and your spell resistances by 60. So having a decent amount of, that amount of health is probably going to be an extra 800 health, which is very, very useful. And having a decent amount of shadow resistance on your pet will be very useful for solo leveling, since many demons and warlock enemies will deal shadow damage to your pet. When it comes to rep, I think your main priority should be to get Thralma and Honor Hold rep to Exalted, since you will have access to an epic ranged weapon reward, and you'll also get a good 2-handed melee weapon for a stat stick when you are revered. The next best rewards are from the Consortium, but obviously you can't find that while doing dungeons. But anyway, particularly you want the one-handed stat stick weapon that you can get at Exalted, so it may be worth doing a few quests for them in Nagrand. Then you've got, and obviously Neverstorm 2. Then you've got Lower City. There's a few quests for them in Taroka Forest, which I'd recommend doing, because there's a decent reward that you can get in piece of mail gear. which is a male chest piece, which is pretty decent. And then apart from that, you obviously want to get the rest of the dungeon reps to revert to unlock heroic mode to get some heroic gear pieces, because obviously they are pretty ridiculously strong, and you can also start farming, you know, badges. But anyway guys, that is the end of the video there. I'm going to wash this crap off my face, which by the way is not excrement or anything like that. It is quite literally mixed spice, mixed allspice mixed with water. For some reason that worked best. Anyway, my name is Goblin. Until my next video, ciao.